Welcome to the Active Life Podcast. Weezy Shumaker. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Larry. It's great to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, 16 months ago, you decided let's mess around and find out what happens with going all in on this coaching career. That's going to be the best thing ever.
You can say fuck around. It's okay.
Okay, perfect. You're going to fuck around and find out, and we've since found out.
That's right.
You were, by my understanding, so please add color and texture, you were working a number of positions that were fine, but not doing everything that you, your husband, and family at the time had needed for you to be stoked about it. Between money and job fulfillment,
Right.
fine, but not great.
Right. Fine.
Fine. And there were a number of factors here. Money, time with kids, time with your husband, as and work fulfillment as the big ones.
Yes.
Missing anything?
Value alignment
With what?
with
Coworkers,
what I wanted to be doing and what I was doing.
Okay. We'll get into it. So now, and only because this is public, I wouldn't have shared it without your opinion. Now you're, I don't know, you're clearing $100,000 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you're doing it in fewer total working hours than most full-time employees are doing whatever their job is.
Yeah. I work on a normal week. I'm seeing 12 in-person personal training hours. I keep a dozen or so fully remote clients. And then the rest of my work week, which is usually about 30 to 35 hours a week, is admin time.
Okay. And the value alignment between the work that you're doing and the work that you want to be doing is there.
Yeah.
The people that you're working with are people that you feel good to be around.
Correct.
You have breakfast and dinner with your kids and your husband most days, or what?
Unless I choose not to.
Ah, nice. Powerful position to
Powerful position to be in.
be. Okay. So that's a good deal for a lot of people, because I understand that you have had previous roles in which you did not like colleagues. You did not like the things that they stood for. You didn't like the things that they wouldn't stand against.
Yeah.
The work didn't leave you feeling like you were doing great by the people you wanted to serve.
Right.
The money wasn't enough, and the schedule was more cumbersome on your family than you wanted it to be.
Right. And I want to be clear on this, that like almost nobody that I worked for and with was intentionally malicious. But I believe that harm without malice is still harm.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can believe I'm doing a good thing and still be practicing behaviors that are not helpful.
Okay. So walk us back through this. What's the earliest relevant position in your life between you, your husband, and your kids where you were like, something needs to change about what you're doing?
Yeah. So when my oldest, who was about a year and a half at the time, he will be 6 in August.
Jack's going to be 2 soon, right? The younger
Jack's going to be 2 soon. That's right. Good. I like the homework.
Yeah.
Good job.
one. I don't mess around.
So my oldest name is Walter. And I was the head coach at a boutique group fitness studio. And I really loved the ability to impart some of the things that I felt I'd mastered really well on other coaches who were getting started. I loved that.
You were already doing that.
Yeah.
I see.
Because I was head coach and they had a pretty good training and onboarding and continuing education
nice.
thing. But the trade-off in that instance was that often I was either out the door at 4:30 in the morning or not home until 8:30 p.m. And so there would go, depending on my schedule, I closed on Tuesday, and then I had some mid-morning on Wednesday, and then I closed again on Thursday. And so I knew that if something came up on Wednesday where I was going to have to take over a call-out class, I was literally not going to see my son for 3 days.
Whoa.
And we live in the same house. And I was making decent money, and then the owner sold. And the people who bought the studio slashed pay and offered to create more work for me to make more money, and realized I'm going to have to work 60 hours a week to clear what I was clearing previously, and I'm already like this is not going to work.
So you already felt spread thin,
Yeah.
did the math, and you realized you'd have to be spread even more thin.
Right.
And just decided, what, no, not happening?
Right. Not happening. I left fitness. And
You left the industry altogether?
I did. Yeah. My husband, who is relatively high up at an insurance company, got me a low-level job there that was 40 hours a week, leave your work at work.
That was the IT job.
Yeah, in like group benefits claims.
Uh-huh.
And what I loved about that was that I was able to work the system a little bit to help people solve problems.
Whoa.
So, for example, I'd have a mom who would claim hyperemesis gravidarum, right? I'm really, really sick. I can't work. And it would be well noted in a chart. And the doctor, when asked, hey, is she sick enough to work, would say, no, she can still work. So then me, being kind of the social justice warrior that I am, would go digging. And if there's a note that the doctor has said, yes, patient is continuing to complain of nausea 5 to 10 times a day, persistently, even if the doctor said, no, this is not warranted, I would be able to make a case for approving it and then get this person paid for 6 months of a sick pregnancy.
Well, I think what's really powerful about that is you didn't just fudge notes. You spent the energy to make a case within the system's mechanism.
Right. And I loved that part of the job. And in the meanwhile, my husband and I joined a corporate fitness gym as members.
Okay.
And I remember, it's a suit and tie. You get interviewed when you're touring it type of place. And I remember them asking what I did, and I had not yet started at the insurance company. I said, well, I've just left a job in fitness. Do you want to work here? No, I don't. I would not like to work here. And they, at the end of the interview, said, well, we'd really like to give you a call. Said, please don't. Don't pass my information along.
What did you see that made you say, let's not do this?
I had been through, at that point, a number of tumultuous endeavors with fitness, whether it was chaotic ownership or a change outside of my control that changed the reality for me, or just like a lot of nonsense.
Okay.
That
I didn't realize there was any of that in the fitness industry. So you're at this one. Wait, hold on. What brought you to the interview in the first place?
It was like a membership inquiry, like we're touring. It was not an interview like, hey, come work here. It was we want to join, give us a tour. And then it was a nice enough place where they sit you down and they want to find out about your life. And
I see. I got it. Okay.
And so then flash forward about a year. A big reason as well that I took the job at the insurance company was because they have immaculate benefits, and we were planning to have another child.
This was going to be Jack.
This was going to be Jack, right? And infertility was a case with both of my children, relatively unexplained, a number of losses, and we got to a certain point that we'd marked on the calendar as, hey, if it hasn't happened here, we are going to happily commit to have one child. Like, we are moving on with our life. And
so what you mean is this is our final rep.
Right. I am not interested in myself going through an IUI or an IVF or a surrogacy journey.
Yeah.
And so we're going to either let it happen by this point, or I'm not going to allow this to rule my life anymore.
Yeah. But either way, the benefits of the insurance job were too attractive for the family you wanted to build.
That's right.
Okay.
So this is kind of in the back of my mind of clock is starting to run out. And I was sitting on my couch one day. I was actually like ravaged with the stomach flu. I was very sick. And I had just placed a DoorDash order for pho broth, which was the only thing I was tolerating at the time. And my phone rang, and it was a number really I didn't recognize in the area code that I live in. And I answered it because I honestly thought it was the restaurant calling me about something. That is the only reason. And so I'm like, hello. And it's the director of training at this gym that we joined.
That you told not to call you.
That I told not to call me.
Okay.
Yeah, don't call me.
Right.
I'm not interested.
Right.
And he said, hey, I'm really in a bind. I can pay someone close to $100 an hour.
Okay.
To coach. And I said, I'm really sick right now. Can we talk about this another time? And did the math with Ted and was like, hey, like I could work 4 hours a week and add almost $2,000 to our monthly budget. That's compelling.
Oh, so you weren't thinking either or. You were just thinking.
I was thinking
squeezing some hours here.
Right, squeezing some hours. Right.
Is that what the owner wanted?
Director of training.
The director of training.
Yeah.
Was he looking for you full time, or was he okay?
No.
With, okay.
He was great with that. It was only group training, and it was specifically in like a CrossFit adjacent space.
Understood.
And so they needed a very particular set of
you.
skills that I happened to have.
So you and Ted are like, all right, this sounds good.
This sounds good, right? So I get in there, and then of course there's then another opening, and then there's another opening, and I'm growing the program enough that they said, hey, what do we
When you
have
say
to
opening,
do?
you mean like more opportunity to work?
Correct.
I see.
And
you keep taking it?
I keep taking
On
it.
top of the 40-hour insurance job.
That's right. Right. So at the peak, I was coaching 6 a.m. 5 mornings a week. And then I was speeding home to log on for my day job. I would take a long enough lunch that I'd go work out in the shed in our backyard or occasionally go to a CrossFit gym nearby. And then 2 days a week as well, I'm logging off by 4 p.m. and going back and coaching evening classes and making like primo money.
Yeah, you're doing well.
But then kind of back in the situation of, well, I'm running everywhere all the time and this isn't like I got out of this intentionally. So there then became another opening in midday coaching slots.
Okay.
And did the math and figured out that I could be clearing $90,000 if I were coaching 18 hours a week, roughly. And said, well, we have hit the point
instead
of insurance, right? And the big reason for us.
Were you making $90,000 in the insurance gig?
No, I was making 55.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, I'll still have 2 later nights a week and I will continue to have early mornings. However, we have now reached the point of we're not going to have another child. I don't see a downside.
Plus, with after including admin, you would effectively reclaim 15 hours of your week.
More than that, because I didn't have to program.
Oh, they were classes.
They were classes, right? It's just I show up, do an excellent job, and leave.
So you can punch in, punch out for 18 hours a week and make $90,000 at this place.
Right.
Okay. It's a good gig by many measures.
Right. And so I took it, and 3 months later got spontaneously pregnant.
Fun.
Yeah. And was very ill.
From like pregnancy ill?
Yeah, very ill. I was very ill with both of my pregnancies.
Okay.
And so then the problem became...
It's fair to say that pregnancy is not your body's favorite thing in the world.
No.
Okay.
No. I my husband, whose name's Ted, got a vasectomy when I was 3 weeks postpartum with our youngest.
Okay.
Like, we're not...
Let's not do that
There's
again.
like... It would take an act of God to get pregnant again.
got it.
I will never do it again.
All right. So you're 3 months in, spontaneously pregnant, and you're sick as hell.
And I'm sick as hell. And having a hard time working. Like, having to carry an empty blender bottle with me everywhere that I went.
To puke?
To spontaneously vomit.
Dude.
Yeah. I became the women that I was helping in my insurance job, but I had no benefits. I had, like...
Oh, yeah.
Like, what do you do?
So did you buy your own benefits? You just like buy insurance now?
You can't, because pregnancy is actually a pre-existing condition. So if you're already
No, but you
pregnant,
bought insurance anyway. It's just like it wasn't covering any of this pregnancy stuff?
correct, because it's
brutal.
not short-term disability, right? Like I had excellent insurance,
Right.
and
Was that through Ted or was it your own that you were
through
purchasing?
Ted.
I see.
through Ted. And so he gave me an incredible gift, which was he knew tons about fitness as well, just from kind of being a sponge at, the dining room talk. And he has a passion for CrossFit and CrossFit adjacent as well, or he did at the time. And so he said, well, you're too sick to work a lot of the time. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to lose out on all of this money? I'm going to go and get certified to coach. And then anytime that you're too sick to coach, I will coach for you.
What a stud.
Top notch.
What a stud.
Like, we talk about acts of service being like a gift. Holy shit. What a gift.
That's one for the museum.
Yeah. And so because I was running into the same issue of, hey, I'm up all night vomiting, I cannot go coach this 6 a.m. class, but there's nobody to call. Like,
yeah, so 3:30 a.m., he's holding your hair back, and he's like, well, I'm going to set my alarm for 5:30.
Right. I'm going to get up and go coach.
What an absolute unit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I started to notice, as we're getting closer to Jack arriving, this impending sense of dread that this postpartum was going to be the same as the last one. That I was not going to be able to successfully breastfeed because I was away from my child so much. That I was going to miss out on huge pieces of time because I was not there, right? Like, I know the hours that a newborn keeps, and I know that your opportunity to see them outside of the midnight nursing hours, which are just terrible regardless of what your life looks like. I'd been there. I'd done that. I'd worked it. And I started to dread what it was going to look like on the other side. And then we enter the time that I took off. And as I started thinking about going back, I had this, I don't remember what made it come about, but I had this realization of, hey, you're actually not really making that much of a difference there. Like, yes, your classes have grown. We can prove that the person who started with you 2 years ago when you started to grow this program is fitter. However, they are still dealing with the shoulder that they were dealing with day one, right? I can prove, I have metrics that show you are demonstrably a fitter human being. And when it comes right down to it, the shoulder that bothered you day one is still going to be a problem anytime you want to cut the hedges or throw your kid up overhead.
I see. So in the sea of this, they're generally improved fitness, you start to see these things that stand out as these problems remain relatively unchanged.
Right.
And there's something about them that stands out as unacceptable to you.
Right. Okay. And so this, combined with knowing what Walt's postpartum looked like with me and how little I spent with him and how much I hated that, this is then like brewing into a stew of, how am I going to do this again? Like, I'm going to give up all of this incredibly valuable time with my child who I love and adore, and also knowing I'm never doing this again. So if I miss out on this postpartum, like,
that's it.
That's it.
It's the last shot.
Right.
So basically, this was what you were foreseeing is the last opportunity for you to be able to bond with your newborn in a way that you wanted to be able to.
Right.
Hey, it's Dr. Sean here reminding you that if you are a coach who wants to fill the gap neglected by fitness and healthcare, and you want to make a career doing it, we might be able to help you. Head to the show notes. There's a link there. You're going to click that link to download the ALP curriculum. That's the stuff that we teach to coaches over the course of 13 months to turn them into world-class professionals who never have to worry about missing a paycheck again, doing work they love to do. Go ahead and check that out, and I'll see you on the other side. Let's get you back to the show.
It just felt intolerable to me. Like, okay, so I'm going to go back there and I'm going to cheer people through a workout with a bunch of snatches and burpees when they can't throw their kid or grandkid overhead.
Why such a precipitous change in what you were paying attention to with respect to what you were changing and weren't changing? Why did that start to stand out so much?
I think because I was not so in it and I had some space removed from actively coaching while I was on maternity leave and dreading, or not dreading initially, but preparing for, here's what I'm going to go back to. Like, this this doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if your frame time's better.
You started to notice the places it was empty.
Yeah.
When you realized what you were going back to.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Okay, so what do you do about this?
I considered a lot of options. I considered going back to the job at the insurance company because I left on excellent terms.
I see.
And I knew that they'd take me back. I considered dropping back classes altogether and saying, like, I don't know, like, we'll figure something else out. Yeah. And I knew Nick Mula from years ago when we were both CrossFit meatheads, living in Nashville, Tennessee. And I had seen him talk about Active Life Professional. And I sent a DM. I was like, hey,
Yeah. So, all right. So you do the song and dance. You join. I understand you talked to Sean. You joined the boot camp. You talked to someone that was on the sales team. You're like, all right, let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
You're 2 months in, 3 months in. Where you at?
Yeah. I was about 6 weeks into the curriculum, and I got offered a job at a relatively prestigious private strength and conditioning gym in Columbus. And I got 2 days in before I realized this is not going to be a good fit.
All right. Fun.
This is not going to work.
All right.
And Ted, who continues to kind of be the hero in the story.
Yeah, he does.
Day 2, some really questionable physical contact things happened with the ownership. There was a clear miscommunication on what the compensation and job roles were actually going to be.
Okay, fun.
I pulled into my driveway. Day 2, I tumbled out of my seat and I threw up in my front yard because I was so stressed.
Oh, okay.
From
I was just going
day
to
2.
ask you from what?
Yeah. No.
What was the tumble from?
No, the tumble was like
it was an emotional
right.
upheaval.
Because I had basically just signed up for this 13-month, not inexpensive education and mentorship curriculum. Yeah. And as a part of the terms of taking this new job, I had left everywhere else that I coached because they had a non-compete.
That was going to pay you better than what you were now going to be starting up for.
Correct. And I had fired all of my personal clients because that was a part of the engagement too, right? Not fired and like, hey, I'm out, good luck, but plug you into somebody else or another program.
You did right by them.
Right. And so it's like, okay, I'm in this new program where I hadn't been around long enough to know, like, okay, how am I going to be treated at Active Life if this doesn't work out?
I see.
In this new job that I know is not going to be a good fit and I have no other prospects. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Ted runs outside and he goes, hey.
Saw you just tumble out of the car.
This isn't it. You're going to quit tomorrow and we will figure it out.
Oh, God.
Like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time looking at the budget, like, hey, how long is our runway here? What needs to happen?
To be clear, you're saying how long is your runway in Active Life's education before it's no longer something sustainable without income to at the very least replace it?
Right. Yeah. And we mutually agreed upon 6 months. And
this was the phase where you guys were like, we're going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah. I'm like, we're going to find out.
Okay.
We're going to find out. In a really big way. And at the time, Jack was 4 months old. Right. So I've got 2 kids in daycare.
Where you had that's how old he was when you had the photo of him on his back that you put on Instagram, right? Or like just your hands in the frame?
Yeah. Yeah. And decided, no, like I feel comfortable betting on me. And I called
how did you get to that? Like, what were the criteria in your head? I understand you to be very thoughtful, and you're skipping a lot of steps, and I'm good with it. But there are people in your position. There are people that are in that position in this story, and they're probably thinking, well, this compared to all of the prospects, I see why this could seem foolish. What was the thing that led you to decide, or the criteria that led you to decide you're comfortable betting on yourself for this? You had a lot of money going out, and you had not a lot of money coming in.
Right.
And you had 6 months.
Right.
How did you get there?
Honestly, it was maybe not the wisest decision that we've ever made in the moment.
Okay.
But I am deeply fueled by other people believing I can't do something. Like almost nothing.
I have the same disease, don't worry.
Lights a fire. And
who was that force in your life? Who was that? Just imagine.
I'd love to tell you. So in the parting conversation with the gym owner of the prestigious place.
The inappropriate touchy guy.
Correct.
Okay.
The question was, how much money would you need to make it worth your time to be away from your children? Because this person made it about, you don't want to be here because it's your children. We've hired you, and you're not ready to be away from your new son.
So what he was asking is, how much could we pay you for it to be worth you working here away from your kids as much as you don't want to be away from your kids?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Taking everything that I'd said about this is not a good fit. I didn't want to broach any of the uncomfortable physical stuff because, hey, we're in a power imbalance and it's you and me here alone.
Yeah. Respect.
No, thank you. Dismissed all of the other very legitimate things that I had to say and said, no, I actually think it's because you don't want to be away from your kids. What would you, like, out of curiosity, what do you need to make it worth your time to be away from your children, in a very kind of condescending way?
Okay.
And I said, I'd need to make $80,000 to make something like this work. And this person laughed and said, you won't make that doing this here.
Okay.
And so this is in my brain of like, all right, well, I'm going to fucking make $80,000 and I'm going to happily write you an anonymous letter at that point. Maybe you can't.
Yeah.
I think I can.
Or maybe you wouldn't choose to afford anyone else that opportunity.
Right. And so that was in the back of my mind of, I'm going to prove this motherfucker wrong.
I don't really like this guy. You like this guy?
Sure don't.
So is he a parent by any chance?
Yes.
Wow.
In fact.
Divorced, I imagine.
Yes.
I fucking knew it. So, all right. So you're giving a finger to this guy.
Yeah.
With all the cells in your body.
Right. You
walk out. What's the? I have like theme music in my head of you like storming to go
like
walk to Ted.
Cue the like Kill Bill like
exactly the movie I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So you're Kill Bill and back to Ted.
Right. Well, no. In that moment, it was like, how am I going to do this?
I see.
And then just quickly, like, well, I am.
You didn't have a plan, or you
No.
did? I see. You didn't have a plan, but you had conviction that you were going to figure it out.
Correct.
I see.
Correct. And I started doing all of the things that I'd been scared to do in the past because I was worried about what other people would think.
That surprises me to hear, and I would love for you to share what those are because I didn't think that was going to be an ingredient in your story.
Yeah, I have not always been so vocal.
I share that because people that feel like that now look up to you now. I know that. I know people who do.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how that happened.
I stopped being afraid of offending somebody with what I believe to be the right thing to do or say.
When did that happen for you?
In this stage of fuck around and find out. Like.
Is that the official title of this operation?
Maybe.
Can we just make that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So, all right. So you decide you're up against voices telling you no.
Yeah.
This guy's one of them.
Yeah.
Now what?
I called up both of the gyms that I'd vacated and said, hey, I have some time.
This was where you had the decent gig.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they both said, we'd love to have you back.
That's awesome.
And I was candid with both of them that, hey, at some point, there's likely going to come a day when we part again. But I would like that to be with a much longer runway and on both of our terms.
Nice.
And
what a brilliant frame.
And like, something doesn't have to be permanent to be a success. I don't believe that permanence defines success. And what a gift it was that they allowed me to come back.
Yeah.
And then on the side started talking about the person I wanted to help and the things that I already...
In person and online?
Correct. Right. And so you know this, but maybe the people watching this don't know this, that as somebody's getting started with the ALP curriculum, like, you don't get thrown into the deep end, right? Like, there is incremental pieces that are pivotal to the way that you're going to grow and evolve as a person and therefore as a coach. And so the technical knowledge is not generally what is led with. And so I decided, no, there are some things and people that I already am uniquely qualified to help. And I'm not going to talk on my social media or in my interpersonal relationships about anybody other than the exact person I want to help.
Who was that at the time?
Me a couple of years ago. Right? I wanted to serve a person in a motherhood transition, preferably in a preconception, preferably somebody who struggled with infertility. Right? I wanted to become what I did not have.
Nothing to be confused with there.
No. Right. And so I started speaking loudly, directly to that person. Here is what I do. Here is how I do that. And then as I gained more technical skills and passion for helping other people in other journeys as well, I started speaking to that person too.
So you started to layer people that you were genuinely interested in.
Correct. Right.
At the very least, curious about being able to help.
Right. And practicing some of the skills that we learn as a part of the curriculum, right?
Which skills are you talking about?
Asking the magic questions.
I see. Your communication skills.
Right. Getting curious rather than noticing like, hey, that person on their butterfly pull-ups looks a little weird. I think their shoulder hurts. And then just tucking that in the back of my brain. Like, hey, I noticed on your pull-ups that looked like it bothered you a little bit. Is that true? Right? Getting reps in. And then sometimes that would lead to a really great conversation and then occasionally a client. And then I would determine from that rep, okay, is this person somebody that I want to help again? And if so, I'm going to talk about that more. And if it's not, I'm going to tuck that away as like, that's not really something I feel inspired to do, really and we'll move on. Really
smart. What I think is really crucial about that is you had baked in to your process of client acquisition. I want to back up. It could have been so easy for you to decide, I'm in a mad scramble to get business. I'm going to take on anyone.
Right. No.
You baked in from the get-go. I want to start with only the people that I want to work with. And if I take on the person that I thought I wanted to work with and there's something about it that turns out that it's a little bit different, I'm doing the next one different.
Right.
So really, there's a lot of intention there.
Right. I like to fail fast. And I am not scared of action anymore. Rather than sitting on a big decision or change. If it's something that I feel inspired to do, I'm just going to do it.
That used to be you? That you used to sit on a big decision for a long time and be afraid of action?
I would like chew on things forever. I wanted it to be just perfect.
So weird.
And decided like, okay, who's going to bear the brunt of this if it's not perfect? It's going to be me.
Where did that happen? Where did that change happen? Was the weird guy a catalyst for that? Or did that start to happen before?
Oh, that's a great question.
You're welcome.
I think that likely was the catalyst for it. I've never considered that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine you were just like, there's a lot of well, screw you energy around this.
Right.
And if I'm gonna make this happen, I need to fail fast now.
I need to fail fast.
I see.
And I did.
Okay. So you're at this place where you can bring whoever you want, work with whoever you want under the terms and conditions of this business is established. But you don't want it to be there forever.
No, I don't want to work with somebody forever.
So you knew that you were going to be autonomous.
Yes.
But you started at these other gyms. Right. How long was it before you got to that point where you were like, this has been a success and it's time for the next chapter?
That started to happen. It's almost been a year since I've left the big box gym. Once I transitioned into more of an active life model, I was still coaching 5 to 7 group classes a week, which is like tremendously down from the 19 I was doing. And it started to become more and more obvious because the big box gym was way across town that this is a time suck. And I now have proof of concept. I can do this on my own.
How did you prove that?
Reps.
At the place?
No, I never saw clients there. I was seeing clients at a CrossFit gym, and I still am, in fact, now.
I see. But it was you're paying some rent there. It's
Yeah.
your business. Leave
Right.
me alone. I'm doing it.
Paying the CrossFit gym an extremely agreeable split. I have full autonomy over my clients. They have a beautiful setup where there's a group class and then a personal training side of the gym. Great.
So the proof of concept for you was enough months had gone by where clients were happy with the progress and the results they were getting on your terms in this gym with the rent and the arrangement that you had for you to say, I can do whatever I want.
Right. And so I left the big box gym. And since that's happened, I have cut down group coaching. I still coach 2 group classes a week at the moment. That will at some point stop.
Well, I imagine you're not doing it now for the money. You're doing it because you like it.
Correct. I enjoy it. It's fun. I don't think is a more raucous group of people in the world than the noon CrossFit class.
Good for you guys.
And I enjoy it.
Okay.
So my current arrangement that is a like wild place to be based off of where that I came from and I'm very thankful for is that 4 days a week I see clients in person at the CrossFit gym between 8 and noon. And then I go to an office that I've rented and I serve all of my remote clients from there. And I always take Wednesdays as a complete admin day.
So you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You're seeing clients. Wednesday, you're making sure that everything on the back end and around is taken care of so that you can show up and do a great job for clients.
That's right.
Are Saturdays and Sundays yours?
Yeah. I don't ever work on the weekend.
So your weekends does Ted work on the weekend?
No.
So you, Ted, and the kids always have weekends?
Correct.
What time wait, 8 to noon. That means you're always there in the afternoons and evenings.
That's correct. Yeah. I just got the keys to the office at the beginning of the month. So it's a really new thing. I had been working from my dining room table, which was not a good fit. And I typically will lock the door like between 4:45 and 5:15, and then 2
on
nights.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 2 nights a week, Ted and I go play pickleball.
What do the kids do?
There's a childcare at the gym that we go to.
Amazing.
And they love it. Walt has really taken to rock climbing that they have there. And so he actually holds us accountable because he's like,
he wants to go rock climbing.
It's Tuesday, there's rock climbing. I want to go to Rockwall.
Wow. All right. I guess we'll leave you alone for 2 hours while we play pickleball.
Right. Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's great.
It's such a good deal. What are some of the biggest lessons for you? If you're looking back at yourself 2-3 years ago, what are questions you would want to ask or things that you'd want to say to yourself that other people that might be relating to the crucible that you were in 3 years ago would do well to start to think about now?
Where is your fear of doing something wrong holding you back?
That was happening early for you.
Yes.
Like that was the years ago.
Right. I would just mull on, is this the right thing? Is this the right price? Do I want to do this?
But let's face this, because I've struggled with this before. So people are going to say, well, Weezy, I can list you all the ways. How does that help me? I can tell you all of the ways that fear is holding me back. Right here. Now what?
Are you ever going to get out of your own way? Are you ever going to be willing to say, okay, I'm jumping, there's no net?
There's really no way around that question, is there? Are you ever going to get out of your own way?
Are you ever going to get out of your own way?
How does someone decide to make the decision to do that in the face of all the fear? What would you suggest someone weighs it against?
Well, I mean, for me, it was against what I knew life was going to look like.
If you didn't.
Right. I know what is going to be true if something doesn't change. And that is scarier to me than like, hey, let's fuck around and find out. And we find out. We really find out.
Well, so it sounds like you decided that the worst case scenario of you trying was not as bad as the resignation
right
to the other option.
Right. I mean, the worst case scenario for me was, well, I'll have to go back and do what was going to be true anyway.
You're going to be out a bunch of money.
Yeah.
That you would have paid back in, I don't know what, 5 or 6 months of you working at the place.
Right.
And then you're just back at the place that you were going to choose anyway.
Right. You're like, okay, well, let's find out.
What's next for you?
That's a great question that I'm not ready to answer yet.
Okay.
It's a very cryptic answer, but
listen. Where do I have to tune in to find out?
So I'll give kind of a teaser is that the compromise that I'm currently making is
what a good way to do it.
That there's still friction in the way that I run my business. I see in-person clients one place that is limited to one amount of time, and I have an office
I'm vibrating over this
somewhere else that is limited to another amount of time. They can't commingle. It might be really nice to have a situation where that's not true, and I can just have the hours that I have regardless of who they're for.
This is fun. I'm very excited for that.
Likewise.
You've made this a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the time, Larry.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Thank you for that.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Active Life podcast. If you did, please head to wherever you listen and leave us that 5-star rating. It really does go a long way. 5 stars goes a long way. Please leave them. If you're interested in working with us as a coach, remember, we help coaches from around the world build fulfilling careers, working with clients they're inspired to help so they never have to worry about being able to pay your bills again. No one's ever going to ask you if you are going to get a real job when you work with Active Life. All you have to do, head into the show notes, click the link that you find there, download our curriculum. That will give you a feel for what it is going to take for you to be successful. A team member of ours will reach out to you to find out if it's a fit for us to work together. Till the next show, turn pro.